Scandal seems to be the flavor of the month when it comes down to the ExJW community. As you all know, a certain paragon has been struggling with, let's say, fidelity lately, in keeping the news out of the public eye. And frankly, there have been enough videos detailing exactly what's been going on there. So I'm not terribly interested in diving into that pool. It'd make my implants short out anyway. So instead, I was trolling the ExJW Reddit and stumbled across an Ask ExJW post about the most scandalous things that happened in JW Kingdom Halls. Because, let's face it, whether you're hashtag Team Lloyd or hashtag Team Kim, the witnesses still don't have a leg to stand on when offering criticism, at least according to these posts. Let's read a few of them and see how wild they get. We would be honored if you would join us. Hello ExJW friends, and welcome back to the Darth Magog channel. I'm your host, the Dark Lord of Apostates, Darth Magog. And today I present to you, Ask Our ExJW. Of course, we have to start this off with the original post. Here's what they wrote. There was an elder who had a second family he kept secret. It was found out when his second family's home was visited by brothers preaching house to house. It was a young daughter who opened the door. They showed the daughter the Bible teach book, and the kid was like, "Oh, my dad is in the same religion as yours. He teaches me that same book." The brothers were confused and reported it to the elders. They investigated and found out that this elder had a second family kept in secret for almost a decade. The elder in question confessed, and the story spread in the circuit like wildfire. He was disfellowshipped. This happened in Philippines. So I really don't have much to say about this. Historically, I've been much more of a Western ExJW, so, of course, Australia, the UK, the US, and all that, and it's a lot harder to keep a second family over here, I'm ever so certain. I mean, it's not impossible. Look at Darth Vader there. He didn't know about his kids for quite some time, but it's a challenging sort of thing to do. So I imagine it must be a little easier in a place like the Philippines, where you don't have quite as much access to the internet, and communications are a little harder to go by. So I can see how this quite possibly would have happened, but I'm just wondering how he managed the time split. But wow, they really took the whole example of Jacob and Esau and all those guys pretty literally, though, didn't they? The first response I found was from Light Ranch regarding some other sort of pyramid schemes that the Jehovah's Witnesses are into. We had a couple who were running some kind of investment Ponzi scheme and got caught and ended up going to federal prison. This was about 10 years ago. From what I noticed, Jehovah's Witnesses are easy targets for MLM/Ponzi schemes. Here in the Philippines, there are always members of the congregation who are very active recruiting new members to their MLM/Ponzi scheme. But unlike before, this MLM scheme saw some loopholes in the law and are now legal. Yeah, so apparently this is a pretty common thing here. I will attest to having been caught up in a little bit of a pyramid MLM scheme before. It was while I was on my way out of the religion and going into college, really. But at that point, I had kind of a low-end, low-wage job in an undisclosed retail location. And I thought because I was a smart guy, or a smart enough guy, and I was good with things, I noticed I was being passed up for leadership opportunities, and I didn't much care for that. So that's when these guys came in from let's say it's an insurance company, quote unquote, that rhymes with Murica. And yeah, found myself pretty stuck in that for 3 months until I just got burned out of that very quickly and gave up. It was very similar. You're going to meetings all the time. They were chanting pretty frequently. There were all these tenets that you had to keep up with. It was vaguely Christian. You had to be dressed pretty nicely too. I can understand that, just given that you're trying to excel, trying to do a lot of other things. It had a very similar sort of vibe to the witnesses, so I understand that. Our next response vaguely dives into the convoluted system of JW dating. There was a circuit overseer, single brother, who left his assignment in the middle of his visit. The congregation was worried that the CO might have been kidnapped because he was gone for 2 days already, without any word where he'd went. He even left his stuff from where he was staying. So worried elders checked his stuff, left to look for some clues, I believe. I believe the poster's original language is in English, and that's okay. We're just gonna fill in the blanks as we go. They were surprised to see lots of love letters from different sisters. Rumors said that one of the sisters found out she was not the only one and threatened him that she will go and tell the branch about his many affairs. Too afraid to be exposed, he ran and hid. So just to clear a few things up, when they say sisters for you non-ExJW viewers here, it actually doesn't mean literal sisters. It would mean members of the congregation. Members of the congregation that are baptized in the religion are called brothers and sisters, just to clarify that. So it sounds like he was involved with single women. It doesn't specifically say if they were dating exclusively. I don't think there was necessarily any intimacy going on, but it sure seemed like a lot of these women were expecting marriage from them, possibly, promising a lot of marriage and talking sweet and flirting and all that, so doesn't look like it worked out. And the problem with this guy, he was a circuit overseer, so he's like the head elder. He was like a bishop of some sort. He was above all the elders in the area too, so that's why this was especially scandalous. And him vanishing in the middle of the night was kind of a big thing. That's like a big gap in leadership there, so that's a big surprise. Oh, here's one from a rural American congregation from Joseph. Let's see what he has to say. Not mine, but the next town over, they had orgies every now and again. My cousin participated. She's still physically and mentally in too, which blows my mind. So basically what that means is this poster's cousin, participated in literal orgies. There's no way around that. So intimacy with a lot of people, basically. And yeah, it's actually not something that you're allowed to do. Now, I've heard rumors about this before, and I've always read about this in iceberg posts and things like that. What fascinates me about this is, the witness is always on about sex, no premarital sex, no certain positions and things like that. They're on about sexual immorality and affairs and all. But I suppose this particular congregation took non-married people can't have sex very literally, meaning that I suppose if they were married and they had sex, it was okay because it's for married people instead of the correct way to say it, which is married to one another. I don't know. It's all very strange here. Not really sure what the plan was, but well, there it is. That's the head count. Speaking of marriage and affairs, Julian has a very interesting post about another rural congregation that got a little less hetero with their orgies. Was in a congregation in the far-out suburbs, bordering on rural, in Virginia, where either 3 or 4 elders' wives had lesbian affairs with each other, and were all disfellowshipped and immediately divorced their husbands. All immediately started working towards reinstatement, and all the husbands were remarried to new wives within 2 years. All the elders had to step down, which is why I got moved there. All the ex-wives pretty much got remarried as soon as their ex-husband did, and they were free to do so. Everyone was reinstated within 18 months. It was never fully proven, but very clearly the lesbianism was a ploy to intentionally get out of loveless marriages. Very sad. Lots of kids impacted. The power vacuum from those 4 brothers getting deleted was a big concern for the congregation. A really tyrannical brother got made presiding overseer. This was coordinator of the body of elders days, and he pretty much ruled by fiat. One elder resigned in protest. Kobe made life miserable for all young ones in the hall. Lots of stalking, a ban on social media, general crap like that. Later on in the same hall, a 15-year-old daughter of a ministerial servant started dating a brother in a neighboring hall who was 18. Kobe stalked them and made sure they were literally not allowed at the same get-together without threatening the ministerial servant with deletion since she was not of marrying age. The couple waited it out and basically got engaged the day she turned 18, and were married 6 months later and started pioneering. Within 2 years, the poor girl caught the guy, an eldest kid, having a long-term affair with her maid of honor, one of the kids of the fake lesbian moms. They was disfellowshipped, the maid of honor had an abortion, and then married. Again, reinstated within 18 months. Immediate fade. Very difficult congregation to serve in. Goodness, that is some hot tea. Hoodus, I cannot sympathize enough with that. Poor Julian over here. Always something going on. I couldn't imagine serving in a congregation like this. It just sounds so Exhausting. It looks like JW Skeptic actually lived through a scandal, and it's yet another money-based scheme. Let's look into it. I lived a big scandal. It sucked. I was a victim of a Ponzi scheme orchestrated by my then stepfather and his elder father. How it was handled is what led to my waking up. It was a massive scandal that hit the local news. Some people in the congregation lost their life savings. My mom and I cooperated with the authorities. This led to my then stepfather being indicted by a grand jury and eventually going to prison for white-collar crimes. My mom is physically out, mentally out now. But before he went to trial, my mom and stepfather separated. I stayed behind in his house for a couple of weeks. I used his computer once to find out the weather and instead found evidence that he had an account with AdultFriendFinder.com, an adult dating website, as well as other disturbing adult content such as, I'm not saying that word out loud. I told my mom and she found his dating profile. She created a fake profile and catfished him into sending her pictures without his shirt on. The elders knew the whole time what she was doing. She then printed up screenshots of his dating profile, which included pictures and messages between him and her fake profile, agreeing to meet up. She turned it all in to the elders, and 2 weeks later he was disfellowshipped. The elders told her to let him be the one to file for divorce, which he eventually did about the same time as his trial. Last I heard, he got out of prison and was reinstated. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that happened I could literally write a book. I probably will. JW Skeptic, write me down for the pre-order list on that new bestseller. I'd love to read about that. Wow, that's a disgusting thing to loop your wife and your stepson, your son into. That's an awful thing to do, and I'm really glad he went to prison. It's a pity he got out so early, but hopefully he's paid for what he's done to you. Since we're not quite over the family drama yet, let's have a look at Trev's post. The presiding overseer in our congregation in Mumbai was Moses. He had 2 single sisters in their late 20s, Sylvia and the much prettier looking Eunice. Eunice may have been kind of Pimo. One day, the congregation was rocked by the news that Eunice eloped. She literally went to work one morning, and by evening she informed Moses and Sylvia she won't be coming back because she married one of her worldly colleagues. They were completely blindsided, I guess, and so embarrassed. Wow, the sister of the presiding overseer, nowadays Kobe, eloped, the spunk of the girl. She always had a rebellious streak. Giannis was reproved. I guess Big Brother pulled some strings, not disfellowshipped, but her privileges were stripped away. They were restored eventually. Her husband was never a witness. Years later, when I was physically out and mentally out, I reached out to Eunice, hoping she'd connect, but she ignored my request. Sounds like Eunice was probably really suffering from something that's very consistent and very common in witness culture. There just aren't a lot of good brothers out there to marry. The religion, from what I understand, is overwhelmingly female, something like a 2-to-1 ratio, but it sounds like she actually found somebody that was, willing to take care of her, had some similar interests, similar attractions and all that, but because she married quote-unquote outside the truth, she got in real trouble. No big deal for her, I'm sure. Let's move on. Moving back to the Kingdom Halls of the Philippines for more secret affairs. And then there is this pioneer for life sister who was a porno addict and had sex with an unbaptized publisher who was half her age. This young man confessed to having sex with the, quote, saintly sister. Sister went to hospital to have her hymen certified intact. She used this to evade punishment. Then she fled the congregation. And too many more scandals that I know. I give up. And then I think there's a little bit more that goes into the comment section over here. In fact, let me go ahead and go into the follow-up post here. Her intact hymen saved her. It was her intact hymen versus the young lad's word/confession that cancels each other out, so she got away. No 2 witnesses. Joke was her intact hymen was indeed intact because she never had sex until she was past 40, so it turned hardened and rubbery. I have no idea how to respond to that one at all, but yeah, no, for anyone, I guess, wondering, it's, the hymen isn't necessarily an indication of virginity. This isn't a science podcast or anything, so we won't get into that here, but yeah, just this goes to show you the general ignorance in JW culture about how science works, despite Awake being a purported, scientifically enlightened magazine, as they say. Had to include this story from Point of No Return Visit because, come on, Point of no return visit. How is that not the best ExJW Reddit name in the galaxy? We had a couple in our congregation. He was a simpleton born in, she was born in as well, left in her teens and came back to the congregation later. When she was out, she had a very extravagant sex life, choking, games, etc., in which her boyfriend died. Ooh. Okay, so later she comes back to the truth and is married to Brother Simpleton. He is sterile, but she gets pregnant anyway. She's in her late 20s then. I'm an auxiliary pioneer in these days, and I go out in service with a regular pioneer a lot who is 19 years old. At some point he confesses to me that she seduced him and they had an affair for some months. In order not to get disfellowshipped and explain her pregnancy, she makes up a story that he raped her during an after-service visit at her home when her hubby was working. The guy ends up in jail for some time until he's released and the case is dismissed because there was no evidence. Actually, the text history from their phones confirmed his story. He gets disfellowshipped anyway, she doesn't. Brother Simpleton hubby stayed with her, believing her story and raising that child. It seems they split up now anyway, just check them on Facebook. Wow, what a roller coaster over here. I mean, false sexual assault allegations and affairs and dead boyfriends. Oh my gosh, wow, oh my. Please watch this one with headphones. You know it's not an ExJW Reddit post without a post from a former Bethelite. Let's start this up. I have a good one. Canada Bethel. Halloween night. Two brothers run around with super soakers and Bart Simpson masks on, breaking into their friends' rooms and spraying people in their beds. The only problem is that one friend had given up his room for a couple in their 80s. They nearly had a heart attack. They got kicked out the next week. Here's another one. Canada Bethel. Brother used to drive back and forth to meetings in our town and stop on the way for a roadside wax session. Once he did it in a provincial park and invited a female jogger over to his car to watch. Fast forward many months later, he's out in service with our congregation and the lady recognizes his car on the street. She called the police and they came to the branch to arrest him. Poor old pervert got busted. The funny thing is, he was never announced even though he was an elder, and it was in the paper. He just got deleted as an elder and left Bethel. He was a really nice guy too. It was a sad situation. Not even really sure where to start with this one over here. The wanking one I definitely believe. I feel like the masks on Halloween specifically just seems like such a strange thing for a witness to do. Like pulling pranks on Halloween night, it seems like something that would instantly get you disfellowshipped. Because that's basically celebrating Halloween if you think on it. The penultimate post is from Bye Bye Borg, and boy do they have a lot of fascinating stories. Man oh man. Elder running insurance fraud claimed he lost over $1 million of jewelry in a fire. He would tell anyone after a couple of drinks it was all a lie and in a safe deposit box somewhere downtown. Elder abandoned his wife literally from one day to the next. This was the kind of couple that would work 8 months of the year and live super frugal, then go on as approved pioneers in areas that needed help on their own dime. Elder running a construction scam, where he would get a chunk up front, start the work, then delay the work for months on end or just disappear. I was super close to a very well-known circuit overseer who told us first-hand accounts of a congregation where the presiding overseer was never legally married to his wife of 7 years, so they were, quote, living in sin the whole time. The secretary of the same congregation was also harboring his son who had multiple warrants out for his arrest due to drug charges, and was bankrolling his own son's drug addiction. When he found out about it, he basically had the branch send an investigatory body of elders, and the congregation got shot down a few weeks later. Daughter of a presiding overseer getting married, but turns out she had not one but 2 lovers that knew about each other and were okay with it. So when her actual husband found out and kicked her out, she called the 2 guys and they kicked down the dude's door to get her stuff back. Body of elders wanting to bail out of jail, an elder that molested his own daughter. Oh my god. Okay, yeah, I'm glad Borg stopped there, because that made me sick. Oof. I don't have any commentary for this one. That last one just really upset me. That's disgusting. Moving on. Okay, huge whiplash, but we got the naughty JW bringing us one more naughty story where we can make fun of people at the very end of it. Oh wow, at one congregation I went to, there were 3 outstanding couples in their 30s. They either pioneered or auxiliary pioneered, 2 were elders, 1 a ministerial servant. Then within the span of 1 year, everything changed. The man from couple 1 has an affair with the woman from couple 2. Both marriages end in divorce. The man from couple number 3 cheats on his wife with the young pioneer sister they took under their wings. By the end of the year, the woman from couple 1 and the man from couple 2 decide to get married out of nowhere. I still believe the reason why the man from couple 2 did it was solely to spite his ex and his former best friend for what they did, not because he loved the woman from couple 1. What's funny about the whole thing is that I could see these things happening from the sidelines. One day, when I was out in service with my then boyfriend and my brother, the 2 who were having an affair were auxiliary pioneering together, and I saw him flirting with her by playing with the belt on her coat. Within weeks, they were disfellowshipped, and I always thought it was weird that one couple used to go out in service with that young pioneer all the time. They even sat together at assemblies. What's even more ridiculous is, all of them are still in. The 2 that cheated got married, and it took them nearly 3 years to get reinstated, which was mostly done out of spite by the congregation, since the cheated-on man was an elder. The couple who got married out of spite are still married and very much active. The last couple tried to stay together, but he cheated on her again, and they got divorced. Found out that he got reinstated again and married another sister. His ex is still pioneering from what I've heard. At any rate, that congregation fell apart after that, and they're now sharing with another congregation. Can you imagine having so much interest in everybody's love and sex lives that an entire religious group, well, at least a part of a religious group, absolutely collapses under the weight of that? I just couldn't imagine. That is what it means to be a Jehovah's Witness. And frankly, there are quite a few more experiences here, but I think this is a good place to stop for now. If you enjoyed today's ExJW Reddit study and found it informative, I'd appreciate a like, and it would be an honor if you would join us as a subscriber if you value future videos. That being said, do you have some hot ExJW tea that needs some spilling? I know many of you won't be able to publicly comment, but if you can, I'd love to read those stories in the description box down below. Bye.